How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Continues to Tick. We have made it. We have made it to $10,000 in portfolio size. And it's a nice milestone to reach for sure. You know the journey. And just like that, friends, here we are, now at $70,000 in dividend portfolio size. How are we doing today? I hope you can see, just as an example through this channel, that time or life, it happens. And we may not know exactly how, all the stuff in between will play out. But one thing, I can guarantee you, and you can guarantee yourself and to anybody you know, is that time will pass regardless. And it always will. And it's really, truly just a matter of what it is that you will do with this time that you have on your hands. Will you build a dividend portfolio? Will you work on your relationships? Will you work on your physique? Will you build up your career? Will you pursue financial independence early on? That way you reach it later on in your life. There's so many different ways to play this game of life, but I hope you've enjoyed the journey of what I've been documenting here, of a dividend portfolio, just slowly, over time. I'm not doing anything special. I'm doing something that literally anybody can do, which is just stay consistent. Or truly, let me backtrack. Just begin. Begin. If you've been thinking about starting a dividend portfolio, if you're truly on the cusp, just start, friend. What is holding you back? Time passes anyway. Might as well just leverage that time. Use it to your advantage. Set a daily deposit, a weekly deposit, maybe monthly. Set a budget. And your future self will thank you. Like I said, I'm not doing anything special, but you're watching this happen slowly over time. And that's the thing. As long as you have patience, and I will say also that context does matter. Sometimes we don't see this progression happen in real time. But as you saw when I started at $10,000, when I reached that mark, I didn't know exactly when I would hit the $70,000 mark, but I knew it was inevitable because this journey has no end point. I mean, when I leave this earth, that will be the end point. But until then, from here until then, I can continue to leverage this time, use it to my advantage, and just stay on course, stay systematic, continue with the game plan. It's truly not that difficult, friends. The hardest part is to start. And the second hardest part is to continue. Once you get those two out the way, you just let time do the rest. But like I said, context matters. And I think it's important to say that just like I went from $10,000 to $70,000 in dividend portfolio size, what also matters is continuing to grow in every facet. You see, when I started this dividend portfolio, friends, I was in a 1-bed, 1-bath apartment. My rent was $1,500. It was an upstairs unit. I was fresh out of college. And the first thing I wanted to do was invest. I knew I didn't want to work forever. And when people don't want to work forever, well, what do? You start thinking about retirement. Because retirement is the only portal out. It's the only way out. It's the only way you'll take off those handcuffs and be free from this financial world tethered to the day-to-day work, clock in, clock out. The only way to get out of that is to be able to afford not to. So time passes anyways. Now I'm in a 3-bed, 2.5-bath place. It's a house, still leasing. It's now $2,800 for rent. But when I first started working, my partner was making less, I was making less. I was making $8,500 a month. Now I make about $10,700 a month. Progress is progress. You have to be systematic. You have to continue to grow because time continues to tick. I mean, that's the overall message that I try to explain on this channel. I was also driving a 2001 Toyota Camry. That thing was making the weirdest and oddest noises when I was driving it. Even when it was in park, it would just make some weird noise. And eventually, I had to upgrade because just like everything else, You have to progress. Now I drive a 2014 Toyota Camry, and that's progress. And again, friends, just to give you more examples, you saw that first clip, 13 subscribers, 13. Now we're at 1.1K. That's how it goes, friends. If you just stay with it and become systematic, start, and don't even think about the routine. Just build on top of it and build on top of it. This dividend portfolio is not something I really focus on anymore. I have it working on in the background for me. So truly, anyone can do it. And just like in the past, friends, moving right along. I think I rambled enough, but with these videos, with these milestone videos, we're now at $70,000. And like always, I'm going to show you, some updates, some data of this portfolio now that we reached this mark. For example, I'll tell you how much I actually fund my portfolio and how often. I'll also go into some of my sector allocations and percentages. I'll also break down some of my numbers here. I'll give you some of my current holdings, as well as my current portfolio's yield. And I'll also share with you my current expense ratio. And of course, friends, the one thing that we always want to see is how much does this dividend portfolio, or any dividend portfolio in general, pay you in dividends. So that's always my favorite part. But moving right along, friends, let's continue. Before you know it, we'll be at 80. And as always, friends, here we are in the Jesse's cash flow portfolio. No part of that has changed since the beginning. We're now at $70,059.08, just to give you evidence that we crossed the mark. This is with the total gain here on the all-time charts of $9,082.64, with the total return of 25.66%. And like I always like to show you, the market gain versus the earned dividends is $3,418.91. The market gain is $5,663.73. And that's pretty significant, isn't it? And just to give you a little breakdown, friends, I started this portfolio back on July 20th of the year 2020. When I first started this portfolio, I was funding it pretty aggressively. I was straight into the workforce, and I knew I wanted to retire early, or I didn't want to have it be a hindrance in my life in the future of like, when am I going to retire? When am I going to retire? Can I retire? I'm building up a pension, but I didn't want to rely on that. So that's when I started a dividend portfolio. I started that after playing with penny stocks, after playing with crypto, and I realized that those are, they fluctuate too much. It's not the lifestyle that I want to live. I want to have something growing and kind of brewing in the background that I don't have to worry too much about, but it's there, and I can have it with confidence that it won't change, and it'll just continue to grow and eventually provide that passive income pillow that I've said before. But July 20th of the year 2020, we're going to be in July 2023 here pretty soon. But as you can see by this all-time chart, we've continually gone up and up and up and up. And like I said, I did fund it pretty aggressively at the beginning. I was doing $500 every single week. That's a lot, and I know that. But it paid off. Pushing the boulder up the hill quicker in the beginning when I had kind of more energy, you can say, it did help. Now I'm only funding $100 every week, but that's because the extra $400 I'm saving off to the side. I'm also trying to get into real estate. I don't want the dividend portfolio to be my only pillar in my financial foundation. The pension, the dividend portfolio. Eventually I do want to add this real estate to it as well. And moving right along, friends, when the year started, I was a little, skeptical about how it would go. I was like, maybe this might be a down year, and it may still end up being. I mean, if you look at the markets, they're pretty shaky. I mean, it's kind of on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. It's so hard to know exactly how the tide is going to turn. But to start the year off, it wasn't looking great. I mean, here we were kind of going downhill for quite some time, and we popped back up and went back down. And so far, more recently, we've been, kind of pulling up here, as you can see, pulling up higher than we've been all year. And truly, time will always tell, friends. But just know the one thing you can always hang your hat on as a dividend investor is that you're investing for passive income. The size of your portfolio will be significant, don't get me wrong, but the one thing you want to continue to build up, as the goal is to not liquidate your portfolio, is to continue to build up how much your portfolio pays you in dividends. That's the one thing that matters. So don't sway away from that. Keep that in mind always. And as you can see over the past month here, just to continue to show you some data, we're with a return of 6.40% or a gain of $4,000. We've been moving right along. And if you've been curious about, how to take a look at this portfolio, I always mention it in every single one of my videos, but there's always a link in the description box down below. Just click on that. You can see everything that I'm holding and all my sector slices, and you could do that at your own pace. If I did that in these videos, it'd take too long, so I always try to save you the time, and I'll just give you some examples, but I don't ever fully go into depth. But just to show you some of the best performers here, tech is by far my number one right now with a return of 149%, and it currently holds 10% slice of my portfolio. But if we click on it, for example, Nvidia has been rocking and rolling. I know there's been a lot of talk of AI, and technology as a whole is just continuing to advance. I mean, it's quite scary if you truly actually take the time to think about it, how advanced and how quick all this is actually moving. It's pretty terrifying, honestly. But Nvidia is moving right along, and followed by Oracle, or actually let's see, followed by Oracle, then Apple, IBM, Cisco, Visa. I mean, all the techs are in the green. But just to show you here, energy is next, followed by consumer discretionary, and the list goes on and on. And as far as some of the down sectors here, healthcare, real estate is really no surprise, and then communications, it's always a hit or miss. I always think it's quite ironic and funny that the fossil company, in a way, Omnicom Group, the one that's always under the radar, no one really talks about, is actually the only one in the green. Whereas Verizon and AT&T, you can even throw Comcast in it, have been in the red and are in the red for quite some time. But take a look at my chart, friends, if you're curious. Do it at your own time if you're curious. And now just kind of moving into the activity section, let me just show you some evidence here. I do have weekly deposits of $100. Here's one, moving right along. Here's the other one from the week before, and so on. And these green ones here, this is my dividend payouts. I got Waste Management of $2, Duke Energy of $7.86, I got NextEra Energy of $2.88, and so on. I got some bigger ones here. Walgreens, $18. People may be saying, why are you still holding Walgreens? Well, if you remember during COVID, it also did bad and it kind of rebounded. Walgreens could be a dying company, but it's still here and it's still around and it's still everywhere. They're trying their efforts to try to be relevant and try to change, but for now I still hold them. So they do pay a pretty good dividend. 3M, $10, Pfizer, $14. So this is the beauty of being a dividend investor. The markets, it doesn't really matter on the day-to-day, month-to-month even, how they're doing. I mean, they'll still pay you dividends. Like, that's the point of it. I mean, if they do eventually get to a dividend cut, that happens quite slowly. It's not something that happens so quickly like holding a growth stock, like Tesla, which can balloon and crash all in the same month. So when you're a dividend investor, you really do get a peace of mind when it comes to that. And now just to show you some of the data of this portfolio here of mine, going into the Jesse's cash flow portfolio. So the holdings, I have a total of 51 holdings. If you're curious, I've said in many videos before in the past as to why. When I started this portfolio, I always knew I was going to grow it to be at least $1 million portfolio, if not a multi, and by that I mean hopefully 2 million. So I always kind of viewed it like getting a bigger pair of shoes when you're younger, and eventually you're growing into it. From the beginning, I did have 51 holdings. And if you look at my return, I don't feel like it's been a hindrance. I mean, I feel like I'm right on par with where I should be, despite, the high number of holdings that I have. If anything, it's helped me stay diversified, and I've just been moving right along. It hasn't really been a concern of mine, although some people have questioned it before. And don't get me wrong, friends, every now and again I question it myself. And as far as the dividend yield, we're at 3.211%, which is, better probably than where I'd even want it. I'm pretty comfortable with anything, between 2.8% and 3.3%, and it hasn't faltered me yet. And as far as my expense ratio, it's 0.01%, so practically nothing. I enjoy managing my own portfolio. Not everybody does, but I get some fun out of it, and I'll take maybe a slight less of a return, just for some of that enjoyment, just for me. So for my current short-term plans, friends, it's just to continue to funnel this portfolio $100 every single week, and continue to do that hopefully for the next 3 years. My timeline is really trying to reach the age of 30 and hopefully having a down payment enough for a house that I'm truly interested in, whether to rent it out or to live in, or live in and rent out as well. It really just depends, but that's my goal all the way until my age of 30, is to continue to save up cash and continue to go at this pace. By the time I reach 30, I should have enough for a pretty good down payment for a house. And doing some of the calculations before that I've shown, I should have a portfolio here of about $100,000. It'll be kind of right on the cusp, and that would be pretty good for me. Building up the pension and trying to increase my income at work, having a portfolio of about 100 grand in here that pays dividends, and then also having a pretty significant down payment for a house. Getting into real estate around that time, that would be the ideal picture. So we'll see how time continues to play out and pan out, but that's my goal. And as far as the longer term, my goal has always been, and I've been pretty transparent, is to retire at the age of 50. Some people say it's a far time away, but realistically, if anything happens sooner than that, great. But just, the realist part of me just understands that, looking at the people ahead of you, if you live in the middle class, retiring at the age of 50 is amazing. Most people retire in their 60s at the age of 65 or 67. So if I could be in the middle class or upper middle class and retire at 50 or 52 or something around there, when I'm eligible to retire with a pension, if I stay with the state, that'd be amazing. That would be so ideal. And that's the plan, friends. Hopefully around that time as well, maybe I'll have 2 rental properties, just to be real. And they'll also be kind of giving me some passive income as well. Time will tell, but that is the plan. And I'm a big believer that, as for you as well, it's so important to set goals, because if you don't set them, if you don't put it out there, you're not really going towards anything. The only thing that's going to have this gravitational pull towards an outcome that you want is when you put it out there, when you think about it every single day, kind of like this dividend portfolio. I envision it to be $1 million portfolio one day. And as you saw, time passes. I was at 10,000, then 20, and so on, and now I'm at $70,000. And that's how it goes. Just continue to think about it, continue to plan for it, look ahead into the horizon, and you will just naturally gravitate to that. That's just how it works. Repetition. The one thing I would always say is consistency leads to progress, and then it's that progress that then leads to results. So continue onwards, friends. And now for the part that everybody wants to know. It's how much does this dividend portfolio currently pay me in dividends? It is honestly my favorite part. So let's take a look here. So as you can see, Jesse's cash flow portfolio, it's at $70,059.12. So it's pretty close to what my portfolio says on M1 Finance, give or take, 4 pennies. But here is some composition breakdown and so on. But the app that I'm using is called the Div Tracker. It's on the Apple Store. I'm not sponsored by this app or anything like that. It's just one that I've used, and kind of like when you get stuck in your ways, you don't want to change, once you're rocking and rolling. And I haven't had no need to. And as you can see here as well, friends, the annual dividend income, it's $2,104.89. Breaking it down monthly, it's $175. Breaking it down daily, it's $5. And the dividend yield here is 3.29%. So, pretty much on par, almost slightly more than what the M1 Finance says. But $2,104, friends, that is how much I get paid in dividends, with my dividend portfolio now being at $70,000. So pretty significant from where we came from, pretty significant, you know, from the context that my first dividend payout was Apple of 8 pennies in the very beginning, back in, you know, the time around July of 2020. We've come a long way, $2,000, and we're just going to continue to climb, and as time continues to tick. And that's going to be it, friends. Just know I'll continue to be here. I'll continue to show this journey and this track. I hope you can get something out of this. Hopefully, at the very least, the understanding that time continues to tick, it continues to pass, and just like anything, you know, whether it's your space, whether it's your own personal development, career development, trying to increase your income, building a dividend portfolio specifically, if you stay with it, if you start and you stay with it with a plan and allow time to do the rest, you will see progress and you will see results. It is inevitable. So just understand that, friends. And as always, take care until the next time I see you on a milestone video. Otherwise, I'll see you in 2 weeks on the next dividend update. Take care.